So, once again, good evening. Good evening. So this Tenje Deba, it's not meant to be something like a text for, what is it? Something like for to be studied in the sense that like it is like a commentary, like a standalone commentary. It's not. It was not composed for just that purpose, but as it is clear from reading and hearing this, then it was as it was something like Rinpoche's studying, many years of studying and reflection on what we call shunyata, nature, the nature of phenomena, the nature of oneself, and the nature of the mind. So it is after rigorous studies, and then also not only studying, but something like almost like 6 years of hermitage, of engaging in much purification and something like hardship practices, then it was the culmination of all those factors, and then because now Jeromji had spent so many years studying and reflecting, and then also with this purification practice, engaging in the prostrations, mandalas, and the refuge and bodhicitta recitation. The thing about this recitation, about doing the numbers, is that I think it is in a way like meditation, right? So when we prostrate continuously for a long time, in a way, then this is like meditation, right? But something like with both physical and mental meditation, right? So to speak, like that. And then the same applies for the mandala offerings and the other, the recitation, the 35 confession Buddhas, and of course, the Vajra Sattva practices. So this repetition of the mantras then really aids the mind in the concentration, just concentrating, focusing on the mantra, and just being in this, just being in that mind, just simply being in this luminous mind, right? Without all this, something like the fogginess, that comes with unnecessary conceptual thoughts and something like speeches and so on and so forth. So through that, then this was very, I think it was also a factor in having that dream, in having this, as it mentions, I think, in the Abhisamaya Alamkara, right at the beginning of the 5th chapter, that a bodhisattva at a certain point, then through habituation of engaging in the bodhisattva path, and then and then as a result, in the dream state, and then also seeing everything as dreamlike, right? So because of going through this experience, then in this state of joy, then Jeremji offers this hymn to of course to Buddha Shakyamuni, you know, for the Buddha's sharing of Praditya Samutpada, for dependent origination, dependent arising. So this dependent arising how our worldview is so much connected to our minds, to our thoughts. So in a way, then whatever appears to us, it appears to us because of our conceptual thoughts, not because of the nature of those objects, but really it is of our thoughts. It is that we are perceiving and we are labeling and projecting these objects, right? And that connection, the conceptualization of the object and the conceiver, the thought, the concepts, conceptual thought, that dependence, their relationship, that relationship is really can be understood at this very subtle level, right? It can only be, the depths of that can only be understood at this most subtle level, which is that it is simply just merely labeled, whatever object. In fact, this separation, of course, it does not exist in reality, but it is really something like a figment of our imagination, of our perception, of our labeling thus. So therefore, then after realizing shunyata and having this realization, experience of shunyata, then Jeremji is then inspired, to compose this hymn in honor of the great teacher, Buddha Shakyamuni. So where were we? Was it 33? 33. So as you had shared yesterday, the differences between these two, right? It's the difference between being able to differentiate between something like an essentialist approach, an essentialist's way, and the Madhyamaka, right? So these two ways, being able to differentiate between the middle view, the view free from both middle two extremes, and then the views that are within the bounds of one of those two extremes. And by seeing the differences of these two, then the faith that arises is then somehow now different. It adds something, right? And faith, then it is said that then having faith in the Buddha, a way of seeing his qualities, and there are so many qualities that the Buddha possesses, but as mentioned, I think in in later lines that yes, the Buddha, according to the different abilities of the vessel, then the being then performs many different activities. But from all these activities, the activity of the speech, the activity of sharing the Dharma is something like the most awesome, because it helps us, it gives us, it points to the nature of how things are, right? So by knowing this specific quality of the Buddha, then the conviction then transforms into onto a level, right? Then this faith then it derives from seeing the quality of the Buddha. Because of this, then our teachers, they encourage us, to study the Dharma, really hear the Dharma, really hear, then reflect on Dharma. Why? Then it brings meaning to our faith, to our refuge practice, to our bodhicitta practice. So it is only through learning first, to first learn, and then to contemplate even further, and then generate, and then gradually then going into this to the depths of the mind, right? Going into the more calmer state of the mind, and then knowing from the more I would say luminous state without so many thoughts, right? But of course, since we cannot go into that state right away, then therefore we are in a way we are reliant on these steps. Then to continue from verse 34, let alone your numerous teachings, even in the meaning of a small part, those who find ascertainment in a correct way, this brings supreme bliss to them all. So even if our understanding is very superficial, still it brings us a sense of happiness, a sense of the point here is what Jeremy is trying to convey is that even if we in just like a glimpse into shunya, the nature of our minds, then this inspires us. This inspires us to even continue to continue with us. So this brings this to them as well. 35. My mind was defeated ignorance, though I have sought refuge a long time in such an embodiment of excellence, I possess not a fraction of the Buddha's qualities. And then to continue, nonetheless, if the stream of this life flowing towards death has come to cease, that I have found slight faith to, even this, I think, is so fortunate. So then here again, as we develop some understanding of shunyata, then together with our studying of Shunya, then it is, I think, so important for us to periodically remind ourselves how fortunate we are, have this opportunity to 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 have access to the Dharma, to have this opportunity to practice the Dharma, and to have had this great fortune of having great beings who inspire us, in our practice. So this is, I think, Jeremy is reminding of this. Among teachers, the teacher of dependent origination amongst wisdoms, the knowledge of dependent origination, you are most excellent, like the kings in the worlds know this perfectly well, not others. So this then this kind of offering praise. Of course, we see this in some other passages from Dro-Phen, just as we see this kind of phrases in other texts, where it seems that when the praise is offered, we feel that it is offered in this kind of way. It seems it may so strong, saying, you have qualities, not others, right? So whenever we come across this kind of passages, then I think it is the point. We should not miss the point. We should not miss the point and then sort of become, what is the word? Self-righteous or become kind of arrogant. This is of course the point. The point here is to develop is to generate a sense of really this sense of having this great opportunity now to simply practice, right? So this not be misunderstood as kind of saying something like, like we are better than others, or right, we Buddhists are better than the non-Buddhists, or we who follow this particular tradition within Buddhism, we superior than these others. We should misunderstand and misjudge in this way, because that is not the point. If this kind of thoughts are, and if we do not sort of apply the remedy and simply go with that and try to even, what's the word, even like value that further, then there is the danger that we fall into this abyss of arrogance, and more arrogance can only lead to more mental delusions, right? Mental delusions. So, so this, I think, is a point. Mind. All that you have taught, okay, verse 30. All that you have taught proceeds by way of an origination. That too is done for the sake of. You have no deeds that do not bring peace. Yes, this something like, as it mentioned in the 7-point Lojong mind training, then all of the Buddha's teachings, they all converge onto the single point, which is to benefit others, which is to liberate sentient beings from fears and unrealistic hopes, and of course, wrong perception. misconception. So this is that. And then 39, your teachings is said whatsoever in whosoever's ears it falls, they all attain peace. So who would not be honored to uphold your teaching? Yes. So this is so true that if we take the essence of what Buddha taught, which really comes down to bodhicitta, relative and ultimate, then relative bodhicitta is really a practice of compassion. That's really the essence of relative. The essence of this ultimate bodhicitta is dependent nation. So these two, if explained to any person, then of course no one, I think, will say no to compassion, and no one will say no to dependent arising. I think in the maybe in the old days that might be likely, but nowadays I think especially people who have received like this elementary education, right, and have had exposure to Western science, which I think many of our those in our population have, then this concept of dependent arising is I think will be is perfectly acceptable. So it's like that. Number 40, it overcomes all challenges. It's free from contradictions between earth and latter paths. It grants fulfillment beings two aims. For this system, it increases evermore. The two aims. What aims? Is it the one with the self and the other? I will go with until I'm uh, until I'm wrong. Yes. So it full, fulfillment of our two aims, right? So our well-being and the well-being of others. For its sake, you have given away again over countless aeons, sometimes your body and others your life, as well as loving kin and resources of health. So here, when we say giving, I think the point is giving up the attachment, giving up the attachment. So that way, then I think we then there's no things for what is it, these misconceptions, because otherwise, like giving in may have you know misconception. So really attachment, attachment to our loved ones, like that. 42, seeing the qualities of teaching pulls hard from heart, just like what a hook does to a fish. Sad it is not to have heard you. Yes, yes. 43, the intensity of that sorrow does not let go of my mind, just like the mind of a mother constantly goes after her child. Here too, as I reflect words, I think, blazing with the of noble marks and hallowed in a net of lights, this teacher, in a voice of pristine beauty, spoke thus in such a way, the instant such a reflection of this same form appears in my mind, it soothes me, just as the moon rays heal fevers, pains. So this, because of seeing the Buddha's quality of speech, of sharing the Dharma, then it's possible that just by seeing the reflection and image of the holy being, the Buddha Shakyamuni, this heals the pain of our delusions. 46. This excellent system, most marvelous, some individual are not so learned, have ended in utter confusion, just like the tangled pabaza grass. Seeing this situation, I strove multitude of efforts to follow after the learned and sought your intention again and again. At such times, I studied the numerous works, both our own middle way and schools. My mind became tormented ever more constantly by a network of thoughts. The night Lily Guru Arjuna's treatises, Nagarjuna, whom you prophesied, would unravel your unexcelled vehicle as it is, shunning extremes of existence and non-existence, illuminated by the garland of white lights of Chandra's well-uttered insights, Chandra, whose stainless wisdom orb is full, who glides freely across scripture's space. So here, these things are getting now quite poetic. Yes. 51, who dispels the darkness of extremist hearts and outshines the constellations of false speakers. When, through my teacher's kindness, I saw this, my mind found a rest at last. So making references to Nagarjuna's treatises. So I think, of course, Nagarjuna's treatises, then there's a collection of something like Tamtsok, collection of maybe, what is Tam? So this would include like the letter to a friend. So it's, anyhow, there are three collections. So Tamsok and Riksok and Dötsok. So Tamsok is more like conversations, let us say. So collection of conversations. So more like correspondence, right? So like a collection of correspondence, and then a collection of Riksok, Rikpa, so the collection of perhaps like reasoning or logic. And then the third is the collection of hymn, right? Hymn. And one, I saw in this one commentator, I think maybe from the Nartang time, you know. No, I think from the Shalu monastery. I think he was one of the abbots, and he played a very important role in the Shalu monastery and the Shalu tradition. Anyhow, he made this comment, I saw this comment, that the first collection is like a commentary to the first turning of the wheel of Dharma, and then the second corresponds to the second turning of the wheel of Dharma, which the Panchaparamita Sutras are a part of, and then the collection of him, these are commentaries to the third turning of the wheel of Dharma, then which would include, I think, many of these like more tantric, and then something like talking more about Yue-Se. Yue-Se, what is Yue-Se? Yue-Se is maybe luminosity, right? So talking about the luminosity, and this would also include the sutras that emphasizes the Buddha nature, right? Buddha nature. So from Acharya Nagarjuna's treatises, and then which is here in this context, then mainly the Mula Madhyamaka, the root text by the root text of Madhyamaka by Nagarjuna, and then as Jeremy mentions in verse 50, Chandra, of course, referring to Chandrakirti's Madhyamaka Vatara entering the Madhyamaka. So here then Jeremy presents Madhyamaka from the viewpoint of Nagarjuna and Chandrakirti's works. And by work, I mean more on from the sutra level, because usually we have teachings on emptiness. One is presenting more from the sutra level, and the other is presenting more from the tantric level, right? From the tantric. And the sutra level is usually more as in what we call the object clear light. Also not luminosity, but clear light. That was the term. So at the sutra level, then it explains more about emptiness as the object clear light, and then in the tantric, then what we call the subject clear light, right? Subject clear light. So this is why we have this different kind of approach within the different traditions. In some tradition, when they explain emptiness, then they explain more from the tantric side, from the subject clear light state, more from that viewpoint. Whereas Jeremji, at least in these texts, then emphasizes first on the object clear light, and then gradually then moving on to, of course, subject clear light, which all of these different tradition, they are all equal in that way that they all converge to that point. Eventually, all paths lead up to that subject clear light state. So if it is a fully awakened state, which is the subject clear light, right? So there's no difference when it is at that level. True. Of all your deeds, your speech is supreme. Within that, too, it is this very speech. So the wise should remember the Buddha through this teaching of dependent origination. Yes, I think this is really to develop faith in the Buddha from the point of the Buddha's speech, from the Buddha's speech, from the Buddha's speech regarding dependent origination. There are many different ways. Yes. Actually, there are different ways in which we develop faith. And from my viewpoint, it's all good. Whatever, as not the very fact that someone sees a certain quality and then develops faith, this is really good, right? This is really good. So again, not to veer off from the point and then sort of becoming judgmental and saying, no, we should develop faith in this way, just as Kendall Teba says, just as verse 52, just as Rinpoche says, we should do it like this. This I don't think is very productive anyhow. This approach is not productive. Not productive, sorry. It's not constructive. Yes. 53. Following such a teacher and having become a renunciate, having studied the conqueror's words not too poorly, I think, so being Rinpoche, this monk who strives in the yogic practices, such is the depth of his reference to the great seer. Since it is due to my teacher's kindness I have met with the teaching of the unexcelled teacher, I dedicate this virtue towards the cause for all beings to be sustained by sublime spiritual mentors. May the teaching of this beneficent one till world's end be unshaken by the winds of evil thoughts. May it always be filled with those who find conviction in the teacher by understanding the teaching's true nature. May I never falter, even for an instant, to uphold the excellent way of the sage, which illuminates the principle of dependent origination through all my births, even giving away my body and life. May I spend day and night carefully reflecting by what means can I enhance this teaching achieved by the Supreme Savior through strenuous efforts over countless eons. As I strive in this with pure intention, may Brahma, Indra, and the world's guardians and protectors, such as Mahakala, unswervingly always assist me. This hymn, entitled Essence of Well-Uttered Insights, praising the unexcelled teacher, the great friend to the entire world, even to the unfamiliar, for teaching the profound dependent origination, was composed by the well-read monk Lobsang Tabe Bell. It was written at the heavenly retreat of Ading on the towering mountain of Odikongel, otherwise known as Gaden number Ling. The scriber was Namka Bell. And this is translated by Dr. Abdin Jimba. So yesterday, I think when I did the formal reading, uh, did someone miss? Did someone miss the formal reading? Did someone miss the transmission? If there's anyone, could you raise your hands? Oh, okay, okay. So then, uh, shall I then read it? Shall I then read it? Okay, okay. So why I ask is, of course, as you know, uh, what was it? Yes, so after Buddha Shakyamuni attained the fully awakened state, after awakening, the great awakening, as you know, he stayed silent for 7 weeks, right? And he said, substitute said too much. Anyhow, this verse, he says, this profound, this clear light, this unborn phenomena that the nectar of this, I I simply don't find anybody to share this with. And then he stood silent for 7 weeks until he was requested. He was requested. And of course, I think it was Brahma and also Indra. They offered the thousand-spoked wheel and requested to turn the wheel of Dharma. And then, of course, the first five disciples also made the request likewise. And then so the five disciples, and then of course from our Mahayana tradition, then we say also not only the five disciples were the only like the humans, but there were also like many other non-human beings also attended this first sermon. And this is, I think, one reason why, what's that word? Proselytize, right? To convert. So we don't do this, So this is not the Buddhist way, as you know. And that's, I think, really where it really comes down to, because of the Buddha's approach, is that without the request for something, then it is better not to share, the Dharma. Without the request for Dharma, then it is better not to share the Dharma, right? And this is like mentioned in the Vinaya parts, in the Vinaya passages as well, where there's something like Masewar Michao. Without the request, then do not give the ordinations, do not give these other rituals and so on and so forth. So because I think I saw some head noddings, yes, also from upstairs. So then I think, yeah, maybe we can all just like take a break and just reflect. So just like yesterday, then again, to first reflect on the meaning of this verse. So first, maybe we can all say Sangye Chozomo together. Sangye Chodan Sogi Chonam La Janju Bardo Danye Chabsoji Dagi Chuji Gibe Sonam Gi Dola Benja Sangye Dobora Jo Sangye Chodan Sogi Chonam Janju Bardo Danye Chabsoji Dagi Chuji Gibe Sonam Gi Dola binja sangye dubara jo sangye chedan zoge jo namla chanjo bando dane chabzo dagi cheje gibe sonam dola binja sangye dubara jo mage zimje damje gu tuno dojo na ma ba yanda bozo ga sangye go ba shima ji chin jan do ja de chi do tabi che ru mo chi sen ni me kunu kunju ge ron ya por se namje samba se kan se ba che chuni ende de be long be wa che ba la Namo Guru Mazo Gogaya Kanshi Sijin Songwa Yi Kendan Duma Lana Men Kyawa Tinshin Chawar Chon Sijin Duma Tela Du Kedin Gyuba Chijin Ba Tiye Zawa Mari De Kanshi Toyen Teto Ba Tinshin Dewa Juwan Song Teze Lodan Tenpa Yi Tinshin Chawar Chon Nam Kuigi Tenpe Nini Do Chidaro Kondo Chume Chur Teta Lana Kengyo La Tebe Gone Soshi Ke Tenne Chunwa Songpa Mazaru Chuba Chishi Nye Anga Kena Rade Ba Tete Ranjin Kidon Che Songpa Tele Yansen Be Lendum Suni Chishi Yue Kanto Sume Cheban Tanzin Chungwa Tenje Ba Tini Kena Choba Tawa Mali Chebe Go Tendi Shindo Madobe Domba Shisha Kenyi De Wagi Lani Singi Shin Modi Chena Chambe Se Emo Tembo Emo Mocho Emo Gen Tijin Tishon Nisumbe Tembo Delanda Jaze Beze Kyu Choga Mbele Do Kaze Ba Tembe Nyimbo Tomba Nye Nge Pechon Sitamen Tenjin Choba Choye So Ge Wadane Ma Choba Tonga Di Kyu Lo Chitaro Kondo Choba Nye Kenyi Namshi Tomba Nye Tenjun Tendo Tonga Na Rajin Kinen Tomba Chaje Teba Mege Shin Dele Doba Tonga Na Dona Chawa Mero Shin Chadang Chela Tome Be Nyangwe Yando Tombar She Tiche Kyu Temba La Tenjun Tonga Ne Baranga Tenyo Kindo Meba Da Rajin Kinen Yebe Min Teme Namge Mendo Shin Tena Mende Yuma Yi Ngoyu Tunan Te Choba Chudan Kena Teba Ket Teje Dine Chunga Le Mado Choga Yume Be Rajin Kinen Tomba Le Mado Choga Mebarzo Rajin Toba Mebe Chere Chunam Rajin Gayu Na Nyangin Deba Mi Rajin Tukun Toba Mebarzo Teje Rajin Namde She Singi Deyi Yanyan Do Kebe Zozo Le Zomba Dela Suyu Gomba Ne Rajin Gaya Mebada Dela Dine Dijun Be Namja Damje Teba Ni Minge Toba Minje Dene Jungye Jumzenge Tada Wala Miden She Le Zon Dine Kenge Ma Wala Na Mebe Sho Digun Go Tomba Dile Dinde Junga Ye Nyeba Nivo Pensundo Keme Bane Chojeba Dile Ngozar Juba Dan Dile Medo Juanga Tudi Kela Dena Ne Debo Juge Shendo Me Mongbe Tendo Songa Ye Kanshi Kela Shendeba Deye Rangshe Mebe Da Mizo Julan Zashi Ye Kege Songe Shebe Zue Dene Junga Kela Ne Tonye Ngaro Mizo Tela Ho Ngozar Ju Rangshe Meda Tewe Go Lame Tenju Lame Tenjun Tejunge Mini Kine Rangshe Do Zina Dawa Kiwa Dea Pajo Nange Lejobe Chungwa Dadan Dejo Kege Jobe Lamsan Dea Tawan Kine Tuwaja Rangshe Jume Deme Dan Dende Dodan Chumani Jida Bana Shishe La Mingin Duwa Nitojo Dejadine Juwa Gan Rangshe Kine Dumane Nambar Weyan Tenawe Digun Juma Shinto Son Keke Chidara Tembal Bewa Gejan Chudun Do Lame Nyabar Sumba Yang Dini Kine Leburkum Chile Shena Deshebe Tonda Madon Ngobo La Dono Bodon Kode Kwa Zeshiro Kege Mawa Dame Ba Tumi Jumze Tenjun Lamdi Nige Sonshen Yang Tsemar Joba Ngeba Ge Duje Zine Nizumba Kege Jizo Loba Bebo Tamje Rendo Juro Nigun Zawa Doshir Kege Tene Chijobe Yuri Ngeba Tenje Jang Chijir Kyunam Pebaji Dado Dawa Tenje Ro Emo Kebe Denige Keba Kondo Chijoba Teze Kange Kunde Ne Kyola Chijir Kyumi Jur Kezo Doma Chijime Chajiri Tenzana Yeje Samge Ngeba Tenan Chogi Dewa Der Kege Dalo Mobe Jom Tende Yunde Pumbo La Chine Chabzo Sonju Jang Yunde Chazama Zedo 현장 지도가 조배 속에 주는 만업 그런 중세 이제바 대한 개와 산영기 덤변하는 딘데도 보다 실험나 디제 셔바니에 지된 단하게 공부신 표준 레버 경기 신기민 그게 신이 가져봐 딘데니라 잠대주 대한 영년 대신에 시주 민세 크라미 개모 그게 덤반에 강gen나게 남송바 대단 담지 시주주 큰인 점을 쓰면 그 폐교다단 정보나 안다오게도 동보단 기교 되니 되셔봐 루들고 조업에 뒤에도 그게네 나달고단 신도서 로베닌다는 저서 담에 개발야양당 관계 연대 동아이 저근양의 지진도 니그 토당 최대네 클레마도 개발시 대량의 수기는 두고보다 많이 제수송한 지진도 다위에는 동매지 이랑 크송 상반나 쳔베베게라도 외교 자회 연구회 덤바디 상향기 이는 대대로 소년도 일라 두배 소년네 샤와자만 사와예 도나 다시 신도메 그다음에도 중화예 로산디아미게베 기베 배바사신도 안나마 근도 증벌지 최대 돈은 다기네 배바도미 개바예 제조단의 크기네 공부한다 양도세 대세 전신 대바이 조만다라 점바나 치제드존 자와예 다게 있는 근도도 크게 라메 대베스 여담에 베다반데 지진도 논데 뭐 루루슈로 근데세 디메킹 베킹고게 손으로 하나 통해주 하진잉게 멤버세요 로메 주가 세는 뭐 반된다게 레제게 여러 제메세지 라메 진교 통해서 다게 얘기는서도 제보 기능 송기네 제보 초엔 대한 디니 인지 개발에 대해서 게 지den주 된대신도 제조라도 준주대 교회소나 정말 민민신 니조지라서 배경은 제가 다소 심본데 만들 그 때마다는 이게 마다 언제와되는 놈이지 개와 대한로 말로 신년 담배스며 주로 펜제티 때마세베다 연도론게 넘버 메요신 때문에 수신년 좀 몰라 이제니 다도 강화를 줘 얘네 중에 대니 세제버 되도록 선교와 담제도 루도 소년단에서 뭐 기지상을 해봐 만주지 연보 초대가와 밤이기 nendenyin borzinnen zhubode tawanshiki pewa junyambe nambro chube nyenzen dawar sho. Azanda bezu de zumba na tsanta wangbe jiden zhuwanda nenden nambo nazo sume yawa meba dado zhoje sho yawa meba dado zhoje sho jie samge jumden di jiden tamjiki mande bisaji shimbo. Yamba lana meba la samon tenjin zhawa sumbe kwane. Yoba lebar shibe nyingu she zhawa dini mando tube kelon losan tabe belgi 강진 주의 강지 광보 어디 공기에 아주 왜내 하든 민신 넘버 기회 링시 차와 자리 이게 반니 감가벨로 so this is that was the formal reading transmission of Tenderdeva. So uh, had the great fortune of receiving this, of course, from His Holiness Gyawar Rinpoche, and then from Gebje Ladi Rinpoche, and then also from yes, also from Ge Sherpa Chuji. So Sherpa Chuji Gen Lobsan Nima. So not the present Sherpa Chuji, but the Sherpa Chuji in I think in 92, 93. So from Ganden Nyari, Gen Sherpa Chuji. So Gen Lobsan Nima. Yes, Gen Sherpa Chuji Gen Lobsan Nima. He was when I was young. I didn't know what was going on, but uh, uh, due to causes and condition, then Rinpoche was like my first mentor, my Yongzin, my first mentor. And I've received a few teachings because I was very young. And then sadly, then Rinpoche passed away, manifested the death stage. I think in 95, if I'm not wrong. So then after that, then of course, Gebje Ladi Rinpoche, yes. So like this. So then received this from Gyawar Rinpoche, from Gebje Ladi Rinpoche, and from Sherpa Chuji Kyen Lobsan Nyima, from these three extraordinary beings. Yes. So then I think, what is it now? 8:30. 8:30. We started at, was it 7:30? And now it's 8:30. And what am I supposed to do? I have run out of steam. So I think dependent origination, right? Dependent origination to apply this in our lives. This is so valuable. Having this opportunity to apply dependent origination in our daily lives. I think that opportunity is only so few are accorded that. Accorded? So as Jeremy had mentioned, what is the point of dependent origination? What is the point of the Buddha's sharing us dependent origination? Is as all our gurus remind us, just as they remind us, it is to attain nirvana, to being free from samsara. In the context of others, bodhicitta. In the context of oneself, renunciation, right? So renunciation or refuge practice, and then bodhicitta, then this is like, what's that saying? The two sides of the same coin, right? So when we apply striving, wishing for liberation, using ourselves as the basis, as the base, then this is what we call renunciation. And when we, instead of just using ourselves only as the basis, but if we include all others, then this is, of course, bodhicitta. So then, in the context of bodhicitta practice, which is, of course, essentially the practice of practicing a kind heart, compassion, love, kindness, then dependent origination is relevant, is so relevant in that practice. And in the context of renunciation, first, I have to attain liberation before liberating others from samsara, from the rivers of suffering. And if, as you know, that if the person who is going to rescue is also being swept by the rivers of samsara, then it would be very difficult than rescuing others in a similar situation, right? So then, even for ourselves, us being free from samsara, being free of samsara, being free of the three mind poisons, then dependent origination is so relevant. It's so helpful when we bring dependent origination in how we see ourselves, right? Right now, to the untrained mind, how things appear is that everything appears. Let us not talk about everything. Let's talk about just ourselves. How we appear in our eyes is that we, of course, when we think, as soon as we do the analyzing, then, of course, dependent origination makes so much sense, right? But in our something like natural or instinctive way, or when we fall into our normal mental state, then we do not see dependent origination, but rather we see the opposite of that, which is this self-existing me person, this unitary person, a single entity, almost like completely independent of others, right? How we say I'm self-sufficient, right? But then are we really self-sufficient, right? And then to what extent? So, uh, so then this is, I think, where uh, where things go wrong at that level, when we are in that mental state, when we think of ourselves as this independent me, completely independent, almost like, in a way, our conceptual thoughts is very reductionist. It operates by way of canceling the others, right? This is the nature of our thoughts, of our conceptions. So conceptual thoughts, by its nature, it has that tendency to cancel out other things, and then to really, it is reductionist in its appearance, in its approach. So when we are thinking on this level, then this is how we form the idea of ourselves based on this reductionist approach, and building everything on that, right? And then, as we say, if the foundation is not good, then when you build things on that, then there are going to be cracks, and uh, then we have, as it is stated in the verses, this, what was the word used? Cuba? Was it degeneration? Yes. In the second verse, whatever degenerations there are in the world, degenerations, right? Degenerations. So destructive, right? These destructions going on in our minds. Even though we are trying to protect ourselves, we are trying to be constructive, but the methods we use are contradictory to what we are wishing for. Why? Because what we are seeing does not align with reality, does not align with nature. It simply doesn't align with that. We are given to our wishes, our wishful thinking, more than how things exist, the state of things. We are very biased, right? Our thoughts are very biased in that sense. So in order to overcome this bias, then we have to balance. We have to balance our way of thinking. And dependent origination really helps in balancing, because of this interdependent nature, right? As soon as we think in terms of two ways, how we are reliant, not just one way, but both ways, then if we can try to, if we bring more that into our way of, into our like everyday thinking, if we apply that more and more, then we generally become more holistic, right? We then part away from this reductionist approach, this very like narrow-minded narrow-minded approach. So in this way, then dependent origination, what the Buddha taught is dependent origination, then it's like it really wakes us up, from from having all these dreams, from all these false dreams, false tendencies. So therefore, then to bring this, to bring this in our activities, especially in our relationships, of course, beginning with our loved ones. The moment we bring dependent origination in our relationships, then I think it helps us, circumvent through many of the challenges. Many times these challenges, it comes from attachment. Attachment plays a very strong role. So being attached to not just objects, I think, of course, attachment to objects is not constructive, but it's what's most damaging is attachment to views, attachment to our views, to our ideas. Those are the ones that really get in the way of really opening up, of opening our hearts. That form of attachment, I think, it really obstructs and really tightens and sort of closes our hearts. It really shuts the door of compassion, right? So then reflecting on dependent origination and using that to let go from really holding on to, from simply holding on to our views, our ideas, and the objects. So not just the outer world, but really our inner world, our inner emotions, our emotions and views and feelings. And then, yes, like that. So to as much as possible to approach dependent origination in this way, I think, is somewhat helpful. Not simply for not simply like shunyata and dependent origination, not simply to just use for our something like analyzing for the sake of analyzing, not like that, right? Then I think we then really miss the point. Then I think, yeah, then there will be like a shunyata bypass. Yes. So then, yeah, whatever, I mean, as all our gurus says, and to really apply the teachings inwards, we say inwards, right? Not outwards, not towards someone, not to have a debate, not to beat them in debate. No. The sword of Manjushri is to cut our ignorance, right? It is not to cut. I don't have to say. It's really meant to cut our ignorance. right? So like this. So then to really to cut through our ignorance. So in this way, then dependent origination, emptiness, dependent origination, emptiness. This is one thing, and something for supporting that. Again, I feel that it is important that we, when it comes to our practice, that we do not take this reductionist approach and then only just take it out of context, you know. So it's better not to do that. And within the context, so dependent origination, the teaching on emptiness is, even though we say it is essence, but that is not to say that we can overlook all the other support teachings, right? Or the preliminary teachings, the foundational teachings, which are so important in order to really deepen, in order to really uh, transition from those levels, from those states of the view of emptiness, as we talked 2 days back. So then you go back to the beginning, right? Which is, of course, the Buddha's first sermon, the Four Noble Truths. Four Noble Truths. It's really, that contains all the teachings that the Buddha shared. And it is all in that context, right? How one how we travel in samsara and how to find the way out of that. Yesterday, was there this, did you mention something like the transmission of the Tenzin Nyingpo, the essence of the Pratitya Samutpada? Oh, was there this request? Oh, there was. Oh, oh. I didn't hear. I misheard. So, my apologies. I thought the transmission of Tendil Deba. Ah, okay. So for that, yes, Tendil is Tendil Nyingbo. Tendil is dependent origination. Nyingbo is essence, right? So the essence of dependent origination. So this mantra, as you know, Om Yedama, Hedu Tabawa, Hedu Tejandadakado, Avadada, Diginzayo, Niruda, Ewambadi, Mahashamanaye Soha. Yeah, so this mantra, the essence of dependent origination, and the meaning of this mantra is Chönam Tamji Juli Jungs. All phenomena arise out of causes. Teju Dishin Shebe Sungs. This cause is explained by the Tathagata. Gyula Gopa Kaimba. How one seizes that wheel of samsara, this continual wheel of samsara, is explained. Gejong Chenpo Digesung is explained by the great Gejong. I don't know the exact. Seer. Thank you. Is explained by the great seer. So, in this, then it contains both the dependent origination of samsara and the dependent origination of nirvana, right? So this is, the essence of dependent origination, as we say, konde, samsara and nirvana, samsara and nirvana. And there's this really beautiful saying, not knowing shunyata, then this is samsara. Knowing shunyata is nirvana, right? So this is a very profound quotation. It's very profound. Of course, the meaning of this, I think, is really profound. 예다마 해도 잡아와 해도 되전다다 가도 에와드 디근자 내로 에완바데 마샤만니 소하 예다마 해도 잡아와 해도 되전다다 가도 에와드 디근자 내로다 에완바데 마샤만니 소하. Okay, so that was the Dharani of the Praditya Samutpada Tritya, right? I think, is it Tritya? Yes. So now I've really ran out. Maybe if there's, shall we have a short Q&A? And not necessarily like question, but of course, you could share something. That's I think that would be equally nice. Please.
Thank you, Rinpoche, for the teachings. And one of the things you mentioned was about the not proselytizing or preaching, better to, and actually I was just having this discussion with friends. It'd be very helpful for me in my discussion with my friends if you could direct us to the portion of the Vinaya that I could quote to them about not spreading the Dharma unless we are requested to or experienced. Thank you, Rinpoche.
I don't know which part of the Vinaya this is, but the Tibetan word is Masewar Michawo. Yes, Masewar Michawo. But yes, I will search for this passage, and then maybe you could leave your email address, and then yes, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Rinpoche. I kind of like make up a summary and make some inferences. So please correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. We have to be aware of this fortunate human rebirth to practice Dharma and bear in mind that our well-beings are dependent on others. Dharma practice is for the benefit of all sentient beings. Dharma practice cannot be divorced from our daily lives we still need to carry on with our duties as an employee, parents, siblings, etc. We have to understand Four Noble Truths, 12 interdependent links, and mindfulness. Rinpoche, you touch on the afflictive emotion, particularly anger arising out of insecurity, not letting go of the past. In my opinion, in this fast-paced society, anger is a very common emotion. The anger arises because our perception of others' intention differs, which is the perception versus reality. We have to reaffirm our positive actions and manage our expectations of people. The antidote is to practice patience and compassion. So far,
Oh.
right.
Thank you. Thank you. I I have nothing to say but to say that I agree. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Then just now you mentioned that we have to reflect on dependent origination to negate attachment to views and have to apply inwards towards ourselves. We have to engage in only virtuous activities, contemplate all relevant teachings, and apply to our daily lives on a continual basis. We have to live harmoniously with everyone and dedicate all our merits to all sentient beings.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yes. Yes. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you, Rinpoche, for your kind teaching. And first, pardon my novice question. So very often, Rinpoche, during some of the lesson of emptiness, we will be asked to meditate on emptiness. So how do we meditate on emptiness, and what are the various techniques? So, for example, right, I mean, if I understand it correctly, for example, single focus, single pointed meditation, we are supposed to focus on a single object, or even like some techniques like even focus on your breathing. So how about meditation on emptiness? So yeah, I would like to know, how do we actually meditate on emptiness? Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Meditating on emptiness. Yes. So with this, with the 3 steps to some right? First to hear, and then to reflect, and then to meditate. During the hearing phase, that's when we hear and also develop a theory of emptiness. During the middle phase, samjung, reflection or contemplation, this is where we begin. I think first, if I'm not mistaken, is that we begin from the point of inferential knowledge, right? So inferential knowledge that comes after a theoretical understanding, and then from that point till meditation, we say this is the second level, right? I think the term for the so it's hearing, and then is it contemplation? Yes, sometimes I think contemplation is used. There may be different different terms. And anyhow, these terms contemplate, again, it's a bit vague. To my understanding, if I open up some dictionary, then it's going to be vague. So in Tibetan, like when we study, then we have like we have definitions, right? So we have terms, but not only, we just don't rely on the terms, but then we try to set a criteria, you know, where that term is then used, right? And then the third part is meditation. Meditation. And then we also have the meditation is Gom, and then we have Gom Chung, which is from meditation or arising out of meditation. And then there are also differences between Gom and Gom Chung. But this is just something like a little background. So I think meditation on emptiness, once having developed a certain understanding of emptiness, meditation on emptiness here, of course, as you know, we have analytical meditation and whatever the other term is. Is it like, what is the other term? Concentration? Single-pointed meditation. Yes, it all sounds so good and convenient in when we use terminologies, right? But then how to actually meditate on emptiness? As you had rightly asked this question, this is somehow like a challenge, but in a way, it's not a challenge. Right? In a way, it's not a challenge. Why I say that is meditation on emptiness, it can be done when we can get over all these conceptual thoughts, just being in this bare state without all this all these thoughts. It's a bit like, you know, when you order like some food and they come with so many like toppings and so many sides, right? So it's like taking all of those other factors out of the picture, out of your mind. Yeah. And when you do that, then I think you are then approaching emptiness. And I emphasize approaching emptiness, right? Because that does not necessarily equate to meditating on emptiness, but still getting to that level of being able to stay in this deep meditative state on emptiness would require this emptying of all these thoughts. And sometimes that's where these misconceptions or confusions arise because of those parallels, right? The similarities there. Anyhow, using the understanding of shunyata, and then simply when we say meditate, I take it how I am hearing this word is more the single-pointed concentration, not so much the analysis. The analysis to me sounds more like in the middle order, right? Contemplating, reflecting. So then, in that state, then after all this analysis, and then really to assert in emptiness and then simply stop asserting and then just being in this empty state. I think that's how it is done. And it is important not to have all these thoughts, and especially to not analyze on emptiness, because then that would get in the way of this single pointed aspect, right? I mean, obviously. So then to simply being in this state, the natural state of our mind. I'm just curious. In our texts, we say ignorance, right? The root of samsara, ignorance, the ignorance which acts, which is the root of samsara, of our samsara, is spontaneously arising. That it is not dependent on language, right? I mean, there is this other type of ignorance, this self-grasping that is acquired, right? Through reasoning or through something like hearing the views and so on and so forth. By reading texts, something like this, then this can be sort of acquired, or in a way, in a sense, it is something like a validated ignorance, right? So to speak. But this validated form of ignorance is not the root of samsara. There are texts that says that. So the root of samsara is, of course, the spontaneously arising one. That does not. So the text mentions even animals, so like cats and dogs and deers have naturally have this spontaneously arising avidya, ignorance, self-grasping. If this is the case, then I was thinking, how about a child, in the womb, before birth, right? Then if there's a mind, and are there thoughts? If there are thoughts, then self-cherishing, the self-grasping thought must be quite near, right? That there's no reason why it cannot give rise, why that cannot enter the mind. And during this stage, before we learn language, then is our mind more closer? Is it closer to this clear light state, to this subtle mind that we talk in highest yoga tantra, right? So there was some doubts, this came, but I don't think that is the case, because this is still very much on the gross level, right? So it is no more, it wouldn't be considered more subtle than our present mental state, where we are very much influenced by language. But this is really, where have I gone? I've really gone off topic now. Yes, and this all began with emptiness. Yes, so I think, to simply after doing the analysis, and then when we say Om Sabhava Shuddha, Savatharma Sabhava Shuddha, just being in that state, yeah, without any analysis. And being in this state, also visualizing that being in this non-conceptual awareness. But this is, I think, quite difficult. Like how to conceptualize a non-conceptual state, right? Yes. So I think up to that non-conceptual state, I think we just have to use our conceptual understanding, but at the same time, try to cut down on all these concepts, all these reasonings. This is, I think, where the challenge lies, and this you have brought that to the foreground. So, thank you. Yes. It's 9, and this is where we stop, right? Okay. So then, I think since not everyone will be here for talk, then I think we also do dedication now.